First off, I want to say thank you to you, Dan, and ACCG for organizing this, and to everybody out there. Thank you for your afternoon. Real quick on net diligence, we've been in business now for 18 years. I was telling Dan, we support about 80 insurance companies, and these insurance companies offer cyber risk insurance coverage, and it's to all kind of organizations, counties, towns, cities, as well as all kind of businesses, hospitals, banks, you name it. And the cyber risk is something that literally won't discriminate against you as far as size or the type of organization. It's impacting everybody. We have companies that have $200 million security budgets, 200 dedicated security guys, and they still get hit every year. There's just so many moving parts, and the threats continue to morph and change. And I know some of the IT guys who I heard giving intros in the beginning of this know that firsthand. So what I wanted to do is just give you a glimpse of what we're seeing in the front trenches, talking to the customers who buy the cyber insurance, who then sustain cyber attacks, see claims, see class action lawsuits because of anemic security, have ransomware impacting the organization, and now some guy in Latvia is asking for $500,000 in Bitcoin. This is something that's happening every day now. So, Mike, if you can go to the first slide, please. So this slide is just a graphical image showing, in our opinion, most of the stuff that you read about in the paper, the iceberg on the left, is a tip of the iceberg. We see far more events happening that never make it into the public eye, do not get reported to the press. Sometimes the customers are required by law to report the breach, and they still do not because they're worried about the reputational hit to their organization. Personal information was breached. They're supposed to report it per 50 state laws out there, and many times, unfortunately, they do not. There's also other kinds of cyber attacks and cyber risk happening where there are no requirements to report it. Because it's a loss to the company, and they have no duty to tell anybody about that if your personal information isn't breached. Could just be a business interruption loss to them. So there's a lot of things happening that go unreported, and even though, in my opinion, it looks crazy, there's something in the paper literally every day happening that's still just a smidgen of what's happening out there and what our insurance partners are paying out for claims. On the right-hand side is just the different sectors caught up in these things. This comes from an interesting site called Identity Theft Resource Center. They track data breaches events, and they always have some good statistics. Of course, the government is always part of the equation, but as you can see, there's other sectors seeing a lot more activity than what a city or county would see. So, Mike, next slide. So I told Mike Rishu, my colleague, I wanted to keep this slide just small, just to show that this is something, unfortunately, your colleagues and you guys are seeing every day. Some, poor city, county getting hit with some kind of ransomware attack. This is the #1 cause of a cyber claim now within the cyber insurance industry. It's just something that these bad guys are attacking organizations every day. They're asking for Bitcoin payments. It's very hard to trace them. It's very hard to prevent this thing from happening. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but just a couple sample live events just from the past week or two that I pulled from the press. We could have dozens of pages of these. So thanks, Mike. Next slide. Ransomware, we'll talk about that. Again, #1 cause of a cyber claim. We only see this getting worse, unfortunately, just because the bad guys had realized how easy it is to send a simple phishing email to your organization. And so, unfortunately, some poor staffer clicks on something they should not have clicked on, and lo and behold, the whole network is now encrypted. And you got a couple choices. Your choice #1 is that, some screen pops up and the bad guy's saying, hey, you've got 72 hours of paying me X amount of Bitcoins, and it's getting more and more costly as the day goes on. Or if you don't, you're basically never going to see your data again. If you do pay the bad guy, they'll end up sending you a decryption key. Believe it or not, about 95% of the time they make good on that. We work with some experts out there. They're in the business of only paying the Bitcoins on behalf of the insurance companies, and they get access up to $50 million if it were ever needed. And some of these demands now are getting beyond $1 million. But what's cool about those kind of vendors is we have statistics coming from them that we're starting to put into the eRisk Hub portal for Georgia, and Mike Rishi will talk about that. But these statistics can actually tell you which bad guys are actually more reliable if you were to get hit by them than others. So, if you paid this guy, $5,000 in Bitcoin, there's a good chance you're going to get your decryption key back. And, it's up to you whether you want to go forward with that. But I just want to make you aware that this is a serious threat. It's only getting worse. I mentioned here on the right-hand side, there's one variant, which is simply a ransomware type. It's called Ryuk. If you want to Google that, our statistics show the average demand now is about $267,000 if you incur that kind of malware attack, ransomware. So, thanks, Mike. Next slide. So I wanted to give you a glimpse of what are some of the losses, the pain our customers are seeing. And when I say our customers, it's really the policyholders who have cyber insurance, and they're having attacks happen, having claims, and the carriers are actually paying out that. So we partner with all these carriers. This year we collected over 1,000 actual claims that were paid out. We don't know who the companies were or the towns or cities. We just know the facts about what happened and what, on average, the claims guy paid out on. So the average, if we looked at a 5-year window of claims, the average was coming in at about $371,000. And I can tell you this is skewed heavily towards small organizations. Could be a small company. It could be a company the size of a small town or county. Small organizations make up about 90 to 95% of the claims that we were seeing. So their average loss is about $371,000. If you are a large company, and we categorize that as companies making several $1 billion or greater, their average was much greater, about $5.6 million for a typical data breach type of an event. We also like to show risk managers and clients generally what is the cost per record. You might have X amount of records in your county system of citizens. It's always nice to know if some bad guy were to get access to them, what could we be looking at? So the median cost per record is about $55. If you want to do an average, it skews it much higher, $4,700 per record. The reason for that is we have very large companies of millions and millions of records, and when they have a breach, it's cost pennies per record. But we have very small organizations. When they have a breach, they could be spending $1 million just on the forensics, and they only have a handful of records, and it drives the cost up. So there's a big difference, obviously, between the average record cost versus the median, but I want to just show you both. Next slide, Mike. Small organizations on the left, large organizations on the right. If you look at the 2014 to 2018 window, the average cost for a small organization was $178,000 for a typical data breach event. If you wanted to look at just the crisis services, when I say crisis services, that's just the cost to hire a forensic team or what we call a breach coach lawyer to guide your county, through the initial stages is, oh my gosh, we had a breach event. How do we comply with our state law and contacting the attorney general to notify them of this? Just the cost for that component was $112,000. That's not saying you were even sued yet or anything like that. That's just the initial cost. On the right-hand side, we're giving you a glimpse of a larger organization. Again, billions of dollars in revenue, not relevant necessarily to a county unless you're a massive county. But typically, an average breach event for them is $5.6 million. In the breach services, the crisis services for forensics, et cetera, $3.7 million just for that component alone. Now, again, average versus median, big differences. The median, I wanted to point out, was about $342,000 for crisis services, again, forensics and things like that. Thanks, Mike. Next slide. Is that lag in there, Mike? Oh, there we go.
Oh, must be Edge. Sorry.
Two specific threats, folks, I wanted to mention. Phishing, which is tied in with what we call business email compromise and social engineering. And on the right-hand side, strictly a business interruption loss. Your servers are knocked down by a bad guy due to a denial of service attack or something like that. So on the left side, the phishing, for a phishing event coming in or social engineering, average, looking at the 5-year window there, was $102,000. Typically, those costs are, you have to hire a forensic team to help you come in and figure out who, what, when, where, and how. If personal information was touched by the bad guy or leaked accidentally, you may need to comply with state law. And so you would hire what we call a breach coach lawyer. There's a cost to that. There's a cost to notifying the victims by mail or through a credit monitoring service who's offering free credit monitoring to them. Those costs add up. That's where the $102,000 come in for the phishing. On the flip side there, business interruption, revenue loss, small organization, you're looking at $343,000. Again, that has nothing to do with an actual breach of personal data. That's just usually their systems are down. They have an outage, and what are they're losing revenue. Again, maybe not as applicable to a county, that kind of a thing, but this is a small business type of scenario. We actually do not show what a large organization incurred for business interruption loss because we did not have enough cases that we thought it was empirical. So we decided not to report a large organization BI. Thanks, Mike. Next slide. Apologize, everybody, for the slowness of the system here. Has that changed on your side, Mike?
Yeah, I hit it right when you said. I can see the next slide.
10-second delay. So we have a couple pie charts for you. I want to show you of all the claims being paid out by these insurance companies over the past year, over 2,000 events that we were tracking. Public entities were in there, but they were kind of way down as far as which organizational types were having claims. You guys were down in the 5-3% kind of range. The other types of business sectors having many, many more data breach, ransomware type events like professional services, healthcare, retail, as an example, they led the pack. But still, public entities are seeing their fair share, as a lot of you folks can attest to. And on the right-hand side, I mentioned what are some of the leading causes of loss impacting all organizations. Ransomware leading the pack. A few years ago, this wasn't even on the board. I could tell you it was like lost laptops 4 or 5 years ago. Look how far down that is now. But hackers has always been up there, followed by social engineering and whatnot. But ransomware, we don't see that going away. Just so you know, some of the precautionary measures, we talked to some of the biggest forensic teams in the country who help organizations like counties and cities and towns every day recover from these things. Companies like Crypsis and CrowdStrike and Kroll and others. What they're telling us that they're seeing consistently is their backup data is not segmented properly away from their corporate network or the network that drives your accounting on a day-to-day basis. So what often happens is, for example, in ransomware cases, 80% of the time, the bad guy infects the backups first and then comes to your regular network, because that way you have no recourse. If you were to say, listen, I'm not going to pay you, I'm just going to restore from backups. Well, guess what? A lot of times they already infected the backups. They're already encrypted. So the experts we talk to basically say you're seeing poor segmentation of the backups from the core network. You're also seeing remote desktop protocol ports wide open. And that's just something that IT admins sometimes use to do remote system administration. So sometimes those ports are left open accidentally, and the bad guys take advantage of that. And me and Dan Beck were talking about this early on, and I heard somebody mention before, just giving your staff some basics on what to be on the lookout for. Fake emails, links from that are presented in front of you in an email from someone you don't even know who they are. So these bad guys are very creative and smart at luring people into clicking on things they should not be clicking on. There are training services out there that you can hire to basically do a simulated phishing attack against your organization, and it just helps your employees and staff, be better prepared for the next one. So, and Mike Rishu will talk about some of those resources in the eRisk Hub portal, which everybody on this phone has free and open access to. So next slide, Mike. So this is my last couple pie charts, everybody, before I pass the baton to Mike. But the types of data typically caught up in a data breach event, claim, lawsuit, etc. There's no surprises here. Files critical, business files type of critical, or 30%, followed by what's called PII, personal identifiable information. Example, that would be your social security number or your date of birth tied to your name, followed by PHI, which is protected health information, basically health records. And on the right-hand side, I mentioned how small organizations, the size of a small or typical county, make up the great majority of claims in our study. So you can see the breakdown here. If you add it up, nano, micro, small revenue, it's like 90% of the claims that the carriers are paying out for. So I'll leave you with that. At the end of this presentation, Mike Rishu is going to make sure you have our contact information. If anybody has questions, even after this, we welcome the chance to have a dialogue with you guys. And with that, Mike, you go to the next slide and take it away, please.
Yeah, so this is just kind of a slide that talks about some of the features in the eRisk Hub. We'll look at this real quick, and then we'll actually dive into a live demo so you can actually see what we've got going on in there. But some of the key things we'll be looking at are the free interactive risk management tools. So such as we have a 50-state map that has the breach notification laws for every state that's regularly updated. We have free self-assessments that your IT folks can run through. We have different database and modeling tools. So I'm just going to go ahead and switch out of here real quick. So what we're looking at now is the ACCG eRisk Hub. This is the registration/login page. This is where you'll start off at. As a side note, as a follow-up to this, we'll send out these registration instructions, but I just want to walk through them with you real quick because if it's your first time in, you will have to register. So to do that, all you got to do is come to this page, and down here there's a new user registration form. The key piece is the access code, which we'll be sending out in the follow-up, but you will need this access code to register, so you just got to enter that right there. You just fill out the rest of the form, pick your own username, pick your own password, basic math, prove you're human, and submit it, and you're good to go. As soon as you submitted that form, normally up in the top right it'll say login. I'm just already logged in, but you can just click the login box here in the top right, enter those credentials you just created, and it'll bring you over here into the home page. So yeah, of course, you'll land here on the home page. This just gives some overview, introductory materials. Really what we're going to focus on today are these menu items across the top here. The first one we'll take a look at just real briefly is your breach response. So if you suspect you've had some sort of data breach or some sort of incident, has your contact information at ACCG on who you need to contact with phone numbers. So what we'll really be focusing on though here is these rest of these menu items, which are a bit more educational and proactive in nature. First one we'll take a look at here is the News Center. And what we're trying to do here is give you a nice one-stop shop to kind of come in and see what's going on out there in the world of cyber. To that end, we're pulling in from a variety of different news sources. You're able to come in and just kind of scan the headlines if you'd like, or if you want to read full articles, you're able to click through to their original sources here. The top area, these are all just a handful of RSS feeds. Down at the bottom, we have a blog section where we're pulling in from over 20 different blogs, just pulling in the most recent ones. I do want to briefly point out, though, the first one is the Junto blog here. Junto blog is the eRisk Hub blog, and we do things a little bit differently. Rather than us sitting around writing our own thoughts on everything, we go out and we try to find different subject matter experts to interview in a Q&A style fashion and ask them about different hot topics. We ask that they respond in a generally lay-friendly person way, so you don't have to be a security expert to understand what they're talking about. You can read these articles and take something away from them. Other reason I like to point this out is if you're ever in the hub and you're looking for specific content and you're just not finding it, feel free to use this contact us up here in the top right and reach out to us. We're always looking for suggestions of new blog posts.
Hey, Mike, on that page also, you might want to point out the info armor. If you go back one page to the news center, to the top right there, folks, we have a relationship with a company called Info Armor, and every week they give us sort of a threat analysis of what all their companies are seeing across the U.S., and they try to break it down into something a layperson, CEO is going to understand. So we put up a new one every week as they send them on our way. So thanks, Mike.
Yep. All right, so next we will take a look at the Learning Center. When we get to the very end here, you'll see there's an eRisk resources section. That's like our general third-party vendors guide. Part of our agreement with the vendors that we listen to Hub is we generally don't charge them money or anything. We instead ask that they provide us with content on an ongoing basis. And to that end, we're able to regularly add new PDFs and webinars and white papers to this Learning Center here. When you first come into Learning Center, you see we land on a featured content section. This is just some content that we're highlighting we feel would be of most interest to you. Mark, during his part, was talking about the net diligence claim study. You could have access to the 2018 version of that, as well as a variety of different spotlight versions, including a public entity spotlight. But if you're looking for specific content, you can also come over here to the left and use the search, or do a drop down and view by topic. You're able to click through and get subtopics on each of these different categories. Mark, any other notes there before I move on?
No, you did mention that we have some content very unique and direct on public entities, and I urge you guys just to take a look at that claim study there.
Yeah. And in addition, the 2019 claim study content will start coming out here in the next couple months. But moving on, we'll take a look at the Risk Manager tools. This is one section I highly recommend that if you only have a little bit of time when you come in here, this is a great area to spend it. We won't go through all of these tools, but I do want to highlight a few. Similar to the Learning Center where you come in, it's a featured tool section, but what I'm going to do is come over here to the left and select all tools. Let's see here, we'll take a look at a few. One we'll take a look at here is the data breach cost calculator. What this allows you to do is run scenarios to see how much a data breach could potentially cost. To that end, all you got to do is fill out this top section, which I'll just start off by saying there's 10,000 records. You're able to select your data type. Swap that out, but I'll leave the rest of these questions as default.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
My system's lagging. I don't see that on the screen yet. Is it pushing?
It's hard for me to tell
what
the issue is there, but I'll wait just a moment to catch up.
Yeah, that's good.
All right, cool. So this is in case anyone else was lagging behind. This top section is what I was referring to, is where you just got to answer some questions to run a scenario. And then down below, you click Calculate. And you'll see down here, it'll spit out a whole bunch of numbers afterwards, and you're able to see in this scenario how much the total cost and per record cost would be. And the rest of this is the line items on how we got there. So you're able to review that. And if you have any questions about any specific line item, you're able to click the question mark over here on the left and see what our assumption is. All these assumptions are based generally off of the claim study that we're mentioning before, as well as information provided to us by our various vendor partners. If any of these line items say you just don't happen to agree with, you're also able to come over here to the right and uncheck the little guy there. And you can either say zero it out or enter a custom amount and hit calculate, and it'll adjust for you. Another thing I want to point out real quick is there's also a print function, so you're able to export this directly to a PDF that you're able to download and use in any type of presentation or anything like that you'd like to. So now I want to bounce back over to the main tools section, and let's see here. Take a look at the cause of loss tool next. Verizon does their own yearly data breach study, and as part of our relationship with them, we got some of the underlying data from their study, and we're able to put together this cause of loss tool, which lets us look at the cause of losses at an industry level. So let's say if we wanted to look at public administration, for instance, we're able to come in, see the circle graph of what the breakdown, the causes of losses are. So you can see hacking is about half there, but in addition to this top layer, you can click into any of these and get an additional layer. So under public administration and hacking, we can see what the breakdown is. So unknown there, but use of backdoor, use of stolen credentials, backdoor again, and very brute force, etc.
And Mike, if I could add some context here, folks.
Yeah.
So Verizon, we all know them as the cell phone company, of course, but they have a massive security computer forensic consulting practice. In fact, they do the majority of forensic investigations for American Express and Visa. So each year they look at 1,000, 2,000 forensic cases, and they do this computer crime study called DBIR, Data Breach Incident Response Report, something along those lines. And as Mike said, we have a relationship with them where they give us a lot of their cases, and we're able to update this database on a regular basis just to give you a little bit extra glimpse of what these experts think are causing a lot of losses they're seeing. Thanks, Mike.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here, bouncing back over into all tools. We do have a handful of self-assessments here, and you're able to click through. You have to set up some credentials. It's in a separate system of ours, but you're able to go in and take these and get a sample scorecard or we'll look at a sample scorecard of what you'd see there. So it gives you a breakdown at the section level of what your score would be. So this would allow you to come in. It might take some people assistance from your internal IT folks or so to complete, but you will get an idea of maybe where you're lacking, what areas you might need to focus on your overall security cyber risk there. We also have a full library of sample policies. These are all templated policies created by top law firms that you're able to download, just kind of do a fill in the blank and quickly implement for free. So you, for instance, still you don't have a device policy in place, but everyone has work email on their phone, you're able to come in, download that, and put that in place.
And Mike, maybe the 50-state map would be a good one to show these folks, and maybe pull up Georgia.
Yeah, we're sure. Sorry, where we at? There we at. So yeah, this is a, as you're probably aware, breach notification laws at the state level are changing all the time. So you're able to come in here, and we regularly update this through a partnership with a law firm called Kilpatrick Townsend. You're able to come in, you can get a full 50-state PDF, or if you're looking at for just a few states, you just kind of click on who you want to look at there and come down here. You're able to see some high-level information on that state, as well as if you click on the state name, you get detailed information for that state. Cool. All right, Mark, I think we're good on tools, or is there anything else you want to point out over here?
I think that gives them a good glimpse. I want to be respectful of their time, so we can move on.
Cool. We'll just real quickly look at the security training page. What we have here is a handful of videos, excuse me, on training topics. Here on the main page here, you see we have videos on business security, business models for security, password trust, social media, etc. But also up here on the top right, we have some specific CRL county retraining here, and a handful of videos. I won't read them all to you, but all here available to you as well. Finally, just a real quick look at the eRisk resources. This is just a vendor listings area where you're able to come in if you're looking for any type of services. They're broken down by pre-breach and post-breach services, so you're able to select between the two of those. And depending on what you're looking for, just click into the category on the left, and we have vendors who can assist there. We do generally try to provide direct contacts as opposed to general support lines, so you're able to reach out and talk to somebody right away. So that was a quick overview of the eRisk Hub. There is contact us up in the top right. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out and we will do our best to respond. Dan, have you seen any questions come through?
I have no questions at this point in time. I think you guys have done a very thorough job.
Very good. Well, if anyone does have any questions, you're able to use the contact us here on the eRisk Hub, or you can reach out to us at erisk@netdiligence.com.
Anybody have any questions? Anything you want to talk about? Any resources that you would like to hear more about? Okay, gentlemen, I think you've done a fantastic job. I really appreciate your time and all the fantastic information you've provided. Anything else you want to cover?
Nope, just
No, Dan,
keep an eye
thank
out.
you for, for organizing this. And Mike will follow up with you to get an access document for all these good folks. So.
Just
Very
want to
good.
encourage everyone to get registered and check out the content we have in the hub.
Excellent. Again, I will be sending out the presentation, sending all the information that they send me, and then we'll also send out a recording of this webinar so you can share it with your coworkers. Thank you guys so much, attendees and presenters. Really appreciate it. Mark and Mike, have a very warm rest of the day, and I'll talk to you all later.
Sounds great. Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone.
Cheers, Dan.